Welcome, everybody, to the SNN Network Canada virtual event. I'm your host, Robert Kraft, and thank you all for tuning in for our next panel here today. This panel is titled AI in the Cloud, a look at the Canadian-listed small cap technology sector, and it will be moderated by Ralph Garcia. He is the co-founder and managing partner for Focus Merchant Group, a proud sponsor of the event. We're so excited for everything that we're about to hear. So with that, Ralph, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bobby. I appreciate the opportunity and the honor of moderating this panel. I think these four companies represent Canadian gems that U.S. investors haven't really heard about, especially their AI capabilities. And given what's happened in the U.S. market with C3.ai and ServiceNow buying Element AI, that there's definitely now a focus on AI, artificial intelligence, the opportunities with big data and analytics. And again, we've picked four companies here on the Canadian market that I think provide a great investment opportunity for investors in 2021. So I'll introduce the four panelists, and then I'll give them a minute or two to introduce their respective companies. We've got Shaun, Maine, co-founder and CEO of Converge Technology Solutions. Mike Reinhart, founder and CEO of Quisitive Technology Solutions. Jeff Rotstein, president and CEO of EQ. And Dr. Barry Poe, who's president, Connected Solutions and chief marketing officer at mCloud Technologies. So with that, I'll hand it over to Shaun. Why don't we start with you? Give a quick overview of your company, and then we'll go into some Q&A. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Ralph. Converge is a company that is grown through acquisition. According to a very plan, we buy resellers and turn them into hybrid IT providers, focusing in on value-added services, including analytics, cloud, cybersecurity, and managed services. We've acquired 17 companies in the last 3.25 years. Analysts have a run rate around $1 billion of revenue and kind of in that mid 50 millions of EBITDA range. So both a growth company and a value company. Very strong analytics practice, including we just bought an analytics company called Carpe Datum last week to extend our capabilities across our regions in Canada and the US.
Mike, over to you.
Great. Well, appreciate it. Quisitive, welcome to everyone. Appreciate you joining us. Quisitive is a Microsoft strategic partner. We help organizations leverage the Microsoft technology capabilities to move, operate, and innovate in the cloud. And that whole motion is really about how do they create valued business outcomes, leveraging all these interesting technologies that we're going to talk about today, whether it's data and analytics, artificial intelligence, and just really modern native cloud capabilities. We have the full breadth of capabilities to help organizations make that happen. In addition, we have a product company that brings to life a set of products leveraging these technologies, a capability called LedgerPay for payments processing and payments intelligence that leverages and takes and converts payments data into rich insights, leveraging artificial intelligence and data capabilities that we'll touch on. So appreciate the opportunity today.
Thank you, Mike. Over to you, Jeff.
Thanks, Ralph, and again, appreciate everybody having us on the panel today. EQ is a data analytics and intelligence firm. So what we help companies do is really take data assets that they have and take them to become either more complete or put them in a form that can be actioned upon and really executed in a different way than they've been able to do in the past. The history of the company, we've kind of grown up always helping clients, whether they be CPG, automotive, fintech, really helping clients communicate better with their customers and with their end users. And what we've been able to do is really create a path whereby we can help companies bring in their first-party data. We can complement that with other third-party data sets that we've compiled. We're market leaders now with more geospatial data in Canada than anybody else. And once we brought those two data sets together, we wrap around machine learning, AI. We really try to make it more intelligent so we can drive some type of actionable methods or some kind of actionable items right out of that data.
And last but not least, over to you, Barry.
Thanks very much, Ralph. Well, mCloud Technologies is in the domain of energy asset management, where we're really combining IoT, AI, and the cloud to look at ways in which we can really unlock the untapped potential, maximize the performance of energy-intensive assets across a variety of different domains. There are 3 segments to our business. One segment is in the area of commercial buildings, where we're getting connected to HVAC units, refrigeration, cold storage, lighting, looking at ways in which we can make commercial buildings more energy efficient. We have a segment of our business in renewable energy, specifically centered around wind turbines, looking to maximize the energy production of wind farms. And we have a 3rd segment around process industries, so oil and gas, petrochemical, and pipelines, where we're getting connected to what are typically underserved assets in a lot of oil and gas production facilities: control systems, heat exchangers, compressors, connected wells. All of these are really big opportunities to apply technology like AI to maximize the performance of those assets, because those assets largely go ignored in the day-to-day of kind of day-to-day asset management. So from that perspective, really happy to be here and looking forward to the questions to come.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, gentlemen. So, I mean, we'll start off with, the opportunities in big data analytics and AI. And I'll put this question out for Barry. I mean, you came to mCloud through an acquisition of Ngrain, where you guys were doing, unbelievable work on the AI side with regards to fighter jets, et cetera. Since then, you guys have acquired, field diagnostics, CSA, Air Fusion, Canopy. How do you bring all these technologies together, from the fighter jet side to downstream assets in oil and gas, if you look at wind farms and the turbine data, how do you sort of merge all that data together and utilize it for your customers in those 3 segments that you mentioned?
A really important part of the mCloud playbook is centered around choosing technologies that really have a sense of purpose. And so we're not just using AI for AI's sake. We're really on the lookout for specific applications and specific use cases that we know are going to help drive the performance and the benefits for those assets that we're getting connected to. So, you mentioned that I came from Ngrain as one of the acquired companies that mCloud has brought on board. Ngrain, for instance, came from an aerospace and defense background, so not really in the space of energy asset management, but through our relationships with Lockheed Martin and a variety of other NATO partners, we've been involved with the F-22 and the F-35 stealth fighter programs for battle damage assessment. We've taken that battle damage assessment capability, moved it into spaces like oil and gas, like wind, and commercial buildings, where we can use that AI to automatically characterize and measure the amount of damage and the condition of those assets. So, part of it is thinking a little laterally and looking at different ways in which you can take basic technologies that are being applied in certain industries, and then looking at ways in which you can apply that technology in ways that support the assets and the markets that mCloud's going after. So that's been a really big part of mCloud's journey, is really looking at those technologies and where those technologies are going to best be applied to drive performance.
Okay, very good. And for Jeff, I mean, all 4 companies collect unbelievable amounts of data. I mean, on Jeff's side, you guys have collected petabytes of geospatial data over the last 4 years that help your customers with attribution analysis for ad spending, et cetera. As you continue to collect this data in the terabytes per day, I mean, what's the easiest way, I guess, to allow customers to consume, for you guys to sort of digest that data, and for customers to consume that data as you make you offer this capability to them to get better ROI on their ad spending and marketing dollars?
Yeah, well, what we've done is we as we started talking to our clients, and again, pick a vertical, because it really goes across any kind of vertical silo. We kept talking to clients, and the one thing that kept coming back was, we have an abundance of data. We don't need help with data. We have data for different things. We know purchasing data. We actually know different types of data with respect to our customer base and our store base. So we started looking and saying, great, what are you doing with that data? And it kept coming back with a bunch of blank stares. We have so much, we're kind of paralyzed now with how we do it and what we do. And as we started going down the path, we started digging deeper into what they have, and more importantly, what they don't have, and whether or not that creates an advantage or a disadvantage. And we noticed that although they might have perfect information in one area, they have very little information in a different area. and really to make the best decisions and to utilize some of our machine learning and AI techniques that we've been building into our platform. We understood it. You had to have a really good complete data set, because if you had big gaps and holes, you'd have a problem. So we started going down the path of saying, you know, if we can understand where companies have holes, if we can understand how to plug the holes, we can give them a very big picture of, and a much more complete picture of what they can do with their data sets. For example, you know, a grocery store chain came to us and said, we know everything about our user base, because we know everything what happens when, how often they come to the store, because we have a loyalty program, what they buy, because we combine that with their POS. They knew all of that. And, you know, we'd say, great, we're never going to have that data, but what happens when they leave your store? When they leave your store, do they go to another grocery store chain? Do they buy more online? Do they buy more elsewhere? Like, are you getting as much as you can? Are you delivering the full value proposition to that client? Or are you missing some pieces? So we're bringing in all these data sets. We're helping our clients now, when we've built sort of our SaaS platform, take their data, stick their data in a way that can be organized, that can be actioned upon, that can be understood really well, complemented with the data sets that we bring to the table. Again, geospatial, where people are going in the real world, complement that picture, and then drive the intelligence out of that to let them make smarter decisions. So we're constantly collecting new data, either through our systems or through partners. We really have a good understanding, Canada, soon to be sort of North America, where people go in the real world, and then what that means. How can we understand sort of where they're going, what they're doing, the efficiency of marketing, the efficiency of advertising, but really better decisions for businesses to make.
Good, thank you. And you know, moving over to Mike, I mean, you've developed a great relationship with Microsoft over the years. You know, from Satya Nadella to Judson Althoff to Kate Johnson. They've brought you into some very interesting opportunities. And as we go through some of your recent announcements, you know, across healthcare with Informed Diagnostics, Grant Thornton in you know, on the services side, the Stewart Title deal, where you're using the Azure cloud, the AI capabilities that Microsoft offers you in their tech stack. And now you have this opportunity with all this data that's collected at point of sale, and using that for you know, consumer insights with the LedgerPlate product. I mean, how do you see, one, the relationship evolving as we go forward with Microsoft, utilizing their tech stack, and then sort of moving into some of these great opportunities in healthcare, you know, retail, et cetera?
Yeah, so for us, it's always been this idea, Microsoft, their enterprise technology capabilities and what they're doing in the public cloud, not just from an infrastructure as a service, but platform and data as a service, and bringing that together and really having a rich understanding of how to apply that in the enterprise space. But back to Jeff's point, most of the customers we're interacting with, data is still very much in silos. The ability to you know, integrate that data into meaningful insights is a major challenge. And where we see the cloud platform, and in our case, leveraged and focused heavily on the Microsoft cloud, is using these modern cloud capabilities of data lake structures and other mechanisms, bring that data together, and then leverage all of the power of AI and other things. We hear people reference AI, companies naming themselves AI, but really all they're doing is providing analytics and not providing rich insights, leveraging the power of AI. So it's really helping organizations move in that direction, away from just, you know, rich visualization of data in an analytics to predictive outcomes, and really kind of the idea about how do you really bring to life this analytic and predictive power of the data that's just not available today. We've created a service we call On-Ramp to Azure Data, and it's about creating the framework and foundation to go do that in an enterprise, setting up all the governance and security and the things that are necessary to create the environment, and then start to identify the workloads where they can get the best benefit. Because customers are really struggling with that, as Jeff indicated, that they don't know where to start. And so how do you help unlock that value to create business outcomes? For us, we have a unique value proposition around our LedgerPay payments processing platform, where we are part of the payment flow. And while some merchants like grocery and things have loyalty programs, most have very low adoption. They actually don't know, low single digits that have any kind of loyalty participation. Through our payments intelligence platform, we capture all transaction data at the point of sale, use the form of payment, and can give up to 85% visibility to their consumer base. Now providing that data back into these organizations for rich insights about their true buying behavior, be able to do personalized promotions at the point of sale, knowing and understanding the buyer persona, what is the most effective promotion to target to them at that time. All that's being unlocked using the power of the cloud that wouldn't have been possible in prior iterations of technology, and it really unlocks new insights for merchants.
Okay, very good. And Shaun, I mean, similar to Mike's relationship with Microsoft, you have a great relationship with your vendors. I mean, with IBM, you're the #2 partner in North America. The acquisitions you've done, over the last 2.5 years or so have given you this great toolkit for advanced analytics on the IBM side. I love your last two deals, more on the tactical side, where, as you mentioned earlier, with Carpe Datum, got you some further analytics capability on IBM side, plus Alteryx. The Vivo acquisition is also interesting. It gives you the identity management piece of the puzzle, I guess, as you're building that side of the business with Trust Builder. How do you sort of merge that all together, and both on the Trust Builder platform and some of the advanced analytics side and AI that you're doing with IBM and some of your other partners?
So the other one that you didn't mention is Snowflake. We're a top 5 partner of Snowflake, who had a big IPO this year as well. I just wanted to mention them. So the great part about us is we really sell into the mid-market space, and there's a lot of people that you might be able to buy tools from. So you submit IBM Watson, we're a top 2 partner, Snowflake, Power BI. But then to take, as you move all this unstructured data into the cloud, we have a team of PhD data scientists led by Dr. John Goff, that you just don't find these people. And so being able to take that data and deliver business outcomes, whether it be to the Recording Artists of America when they're looking to hand out royalty checks, gathering all those data sources to work out what the play is to do that. Or one of our largest customers is a ancestry data company in the US, where they had all these unstructured data, but really one of the business value questions is, who are you related to? So how can you take all this unstructured data that's moving to the cloud and ask these meaningful questions, and not just, hey, provide tools to customers to do it because they don't have the data scientists, but provide the data scientists to really deliver that value to them. So that's really where we've been expanding it. It's a key practice to ours moving forward as well.
Okay, very good. Just changing gears a bit on sort of how the pandemic has impacted your companies and how you've used technology both to run your company through the last 9 months or so and going into 2021. We'll start with Barry. I mean, mCloud's, you've probably got the widest footprint geographically of the 4 companies on the panel today. You have 300 employees, 14 offices, 7 countries, North America, Europe, and Southeast Asia, et cetera. I mean, how has the pandemic impacted sort of rolling out asset care, through this geographic reach that you guys have, and how do you see sort of using your technology platform to roll out, as we go into 2021? You guys have said publicly you'd like to connect 100,000 assets. We're probably at around 60,000 assets finishing this year. How do you see sort of the rollout through 2021 as you manage through the pandemic? And we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, well, it's a great question, Ralph. One of the things that I think has been maybe an unintended or a consequence of COVID-19 and the pandemic has been that it's been a real accelerator for a lot of enterprise businesses that have been on this digital transformation journey. So, we do a lot of work, obviously, at oil and gas facilities, which are traditionally, not as well connected as maybe some aspects of retail or other business segments. And one of the things that we have seen is that while they've been on this digital transformation journey for quite some time, they haven't necessarily done everything that they can do. And now it's more of an imperative for them because they can't get people on site, they can't get work done, and the only way that they can get stuff done is by working remotely. And so one of the things that we've seen ourselves doing at mCloud is looking at all the experience that we've got collectively, looking at ourselves as a bit of a distributed team, working remotely to help all of these other companies figure out ways to work remotely. So how can you get that heat exchanger, get a sense for how that heat exchanger on site is performing when you can't be on site? And so that kind of connectivity provides us with the ability to help them get access to insight without necessarily needing to be there. So there is a role, I think, where all this technology is really, really important from that perspective. And that's really a big part of what we see our journey being in 2021, is looking at ways in which we can continue to help those companies that now recognize that they're going to have to be able to do more with less, and that being able to get connected to that infrastructure that they still need to manage and maintain because it still needs to run regardless of whether there are people on site or not. All of that technology now enables them to do those jobs when they can't necessarily be there. So that's going to be a really important part for a really important part of 2021 for us in terms of our own growth stories, looking at ways in which we can help all of those businesses get connected and continue to work under any condition.
If we just use that New York example you guys just announced with the 10 buildings, I mean, as you roll out your smart building strategy through the US, I guess you got to go state by state and see who has, the work from home and other lockdown conditions in those respective states. How do you go about growing that business in particular for now, and then through the first half even of 2021 as the states sort of go through this vaccine process?
Also a really good question. COVID-19 has been a learning experience for everyone and not just businesses in heavy industries. So, I've got the privilege of being able to work with oil and gas customers in one day and then restaurant owners the next. And one of the things that I think is very true about any business that has been impacted by COVID has been that there is a renewed emphasis on health and safety for those businesses. So you can't get back to work unless you make sure that your buildings are safe to be in. And by safe, that means that you've done something to mitigate the airborne threat posed by COVID and other airborne contaminants. And so we've really applied what we know about IoT and AI to be able to take a look at the health and safety of those buildings by way of using indoor air quality sensors, looking at the safety of the air inside those buildings. And that's really a big part of our growth plan going into 2021, is that there are a lot of new rules and regulations for what retailers, for what restaurants, what a lot of these businesses that serve consumers now have to undergo in order to be able to get back to work. And through that connectivity that we can provide through IoT, through AI, we can make it really easy for people to comply with those regulations. So all of that are really drivers for us as we head into 2021, just looking at ways in which we can help these customers, help these businesses get back to work.
Okay, thank you. And for Jeff, you've probably seen the volume and traffic patterns in your data over the last 9 months, how they've changed, with people working from home, et cetera. One, how have you guys handled it internally? And then for your customers, I mean, have they asked you to look at specific case studies if you're looking at crosswalk analysis between different stores and chains, or some of your telecom media clients as they look at their out-of-home market versus some other media buying aspects of their marketing spend? I mean, if you can sort of give some insight on both those.
For sure.
Both those sides.
For sure. So for us, I think two things. I mean, internally, how we handled it, and then sort of what we're doing for our clients. But internally, again, we were, I think, like a lot on the panel now, we were fortunate in the sense that we were, and we are predominantly, we're technology focused. So people had a pretty good setup, when they were at the office, when they were working from home, we had all of our, information was fairly digitally enabled. So the transition for us from home, from office to work from home was fairly seamless. I think, like anybody, it's a whole different topic, I guess, but looking at the interactions between people and teams and bringing on new employees as we've been hiring, and obviously doing deals for some people, sort of doing it, it's a whole different world. But the big thing for us, I think, that we've been able to understand is that the world really, sort of worked in the sense of saying, we've got to do things different, and we want to be able to do things, more effectively, more efficiently. And we want to focus on sort of how we can make a difference with respect to data and intelligence. We right out of the gate sort of were dragged into some contact tracing work. So again, we were talking to different government bodies, some of the various AI companies and institutions, the Milas, the Vectors of the world in Canada. we were being pulled into those contact tracing. We had our team of data scientists working with them, trying to understand how different contact tracing initiatives will work. And I think that proved to be a really good transition for us to say, okay, this is a new world right now, and people will be looking for different information and new information. And you start looking at, I always like pointing at, the companies we always see as the most successful in the world, and they're successful for a variety of reasons, but their use of data is so, so embedded in their DNA, the Amazons, the Googles, the Facebooks, that use of data is so embedded that it's becoming more and more apparent to people that if you don't start understanding how data can work to your advantage, you're going to be left behind. And so started with the contract tracing work just because of the geospatial data that we had. And that got us into talking to our clients, again, cross-vertical, about, well, what is happening with respect to my industry and my competitors, and how is that changing? And how did March and April change from August and September, change from the Christmas holidays this year? How did all of those things change? And how can we better utilize data and better utilize technology to take advantage of that? And just two quick examples on what we did. It's the first is talking to some customers. They'd look at us and they'd say, well, when people were coming to my store all the time, I knew how to get in front of them. I knew how I could communicate with them. But now I want to talk to them. I want to communicate with them differently. Can you help me understand what that population set that came into my store looked like? And we could provide a much deeper understanding of that client base. So right out of the gate, anybody who was selling anything through a CPG or retail chains, we could give them a huge understanding of like what that population, what that customer base looked like pre-pandemic. We could say, this is what was happening last January. We've collected now about 5 years of data. We have sort of within our own data structure. So I can go back to January 2019, January 2018. I can start looking at how the world changed for them. So that's the first thing, trying to find that population set. And the second thing we're able to do is to do things just way more effectively and efficiently. So if I can tell people from an advertising perspective, you're wasting your money doing things in these categories or in these areas because they're not delivering to you, that's something that we could help them execute better and get a much better ROI with respect to what they're working on. If we could help companies with their internal systems to say your internal process can be better organized or better enabled by doing these things differently because of some of the data and because of some of the predictive modeling that we could do, they all ended up in a much better position and they were executing much stronger. So for us, I think it's been, apart from that initial sort of wake up call, we've been able to transition to that both internally and for our clients very well.
Very good, thank you. And for Mike, I mean, your consulting business has done a great job over the last 3 quarters, 12.5, 13 million a quarter run rate. Your team's delivered on some of these high-profile projects. How have you guys managed to sort of cope over the last sort of 3 quarters? And what do you see? How do you see things evolving going into 2021 with regards to the consulting side of your business and LedgerPay as you roll that out? Do you need to be on site with some of the LedgerPay pipeline targets that you're going after, or how do you see that evolving?
Yeah, so for us, similar to what has been mentioned, is we are a technology company that operated probably 75% of our staff remote on a global basis already, fully integrated with full video and collaboration tools and all those things, how we did work internally as well as with our customers. So fundamentally, from a work and capability, no impact whatsoever, and we'll continue, to leverage that. Obviously, disruption with customers for us, one of our value points was helping customers navigate through that. So, especially in Q2, Q3, a big part of the work was doing what I'll call things that you would consider basics, but getting mechanisms so people could actually have equipment, work from home, connect in securely, then start to think about how can you do video and collaboration and all that stuff. So, we do a lot of work to help customers, but they've gotten through that. And now it's really about starting to think about how do they deal with changes to supply chain? How do they change with changing relationships with their customers and some of those kinds of things? And how can the cloud as a vehicle help them do that? And that's the kind of work that we're helping customers do. Essilor is a company that's a major manufacturer of eyewear lenses. And, they had an issue of how do they safely reopen their stores in a way that they could serve these customers. And we help them really quickly ideate on a set of services to do that in order to safely and securely open stores, give both workers and employees the ability to be safe, but also then their consumer base coming in. And likewise, working with Informed Diagnostics, they were approved to be a COVID-19 testing organization. And one of the huge delays was around time for results. We created a whole real-time mechanism using Azure and Microsoft Teams and bot services and other things to connect the laboratory with the physician, with the patient using mobile applications, so that all of that information that was taking a long time to get through the process could all be done instantly, and reduce their result time from 3, 5, 7 days down to 24 hours or less. And those are the kinds of things that are all enabled through both data and leveraging the cloud to do that. So, what we anticipate is much more focus on not how to operate as a company for our enterprise customers, but how to really take advantage of these capabilities to streamline operations in ways that they probably would have not been doing right now. But the pandemic has accelerated that, both out of necessity, but also out of taking advantage to create different business outcomes. So we see those kinds of things becoming a big part of how companies engage. We're hearing in the U.S. that most companies are now saying that they will not return to work for all of 2021, that they've made it such that they anticipate full remote work for the year. So having that become the new norm is fully expected for the foreseeable future.
Okay, thank you for that. And Shaun, I mean, you've got the biggest employee base of the panel members at over 800 employees. I mean, how have you managed through the year from a pandemic standpoint at the company level, and then how have you managed to also have 3 great quarters behind you, as Mike has, with regards to just growing the consulting business remotely?
Yeah, we're a few $100 million into our consulting business now. I think one of the big things is our diversification. And so this was done, we acquired companies on a broad geographical basis, smaller companies that could have a regional focus. And as we saw the impact of the pandemic in various regions, there was more impacted. So Q1 was California, Q2 was New York, Q3 kind of the Southeast. And you did see some impacts. Like Mike, we were kind of 75% remote pre-pandemic. Obviously moving to 100%, and then a large enterprise, I think, was probably more impacted than the mid-market being from 1 to 10,000 seats. But you say getting people to act in a different way. The 2 biggest application differences that we've seen really impact our business was our manufacturing IoT business, where there was a real demand in Q2 and Q3 for automated proximity sensors. So you have a screen that might show a shift go and operate. And before this, you might have had a security guard looking at it and saying, oh, these people are too close. Well, we automated that in an AI system. At the end of the shift, we provide a shift report to the shift supervisor to say, please train these employees because they were within a 2-meter zone for this much time and this. So in order to help them enforce that much safer environment. And that was, say, a big one in the manufacturing sector, especially in Q2 and Q3. Now, as we announced last week, we bought a company called Vivo. And so Becker Carroll was our company that's really been doing a lot with the Canadian federal government around identity management and creating trust ecosystems with their Trust Builder platform, where you can, in a verifiable way, know who you're dealing with online. And especially as governments remove services remotely, this has become increasingly important. But combined with Vivo, who has their trust platform, which allowed the Saskatchewan government to provide electronic health. One of the big problems people are facing now as we roll out vaccine is how can you verifiably, in an undisputable way, show that someone has had an approved COVID vaccine? So combined with Vivo and with Becker Carroll's Trust Builder platform, we've now launched a COVID-19 vaccine passport. So we're working with governments and some of the different vendors to provide this first in Canada, and then there's some RFPs we're responding to further afield to allow people, as we open back up. So I'm talking to you from the UK. We've just announced that the vaccine here will be distributed to all employees by the end of Q1. So by spring, all citizens in the UK will have had the vaccine. So how do you track that? How can you keep this world safe? Well, say a vaccine passport is a key element as we open up our travel, to make sure that citizens are safe in an indisputable way. And verifying that, that's really the key to the technology, blockchain based, that you can verify that, yes, they have received an approved vaccine.
And just adding on to that, you guys you've built these great platforms that utilize and consume all this data. How do you build a SaaS business model now around that to grow your business and grow, recurring revenue as a percentage of the total of your total revenue? And we'll start with Shaun, and if you can just elaborate on, either the SaaS model of some of your offerings and building that recurring revenue feature, and then we'll open up to the rest of the panel.
Well, I'm sure, like all the other people have been saying, Mike is saying to it as well, you saw an acceleration of our customers during the pandemic moving workloads to the cloud, and in order to access them remotely. We were very fortunate that we had a very robust disaster recovery offering that used to be that if you're, we called it hurricane and earthquake insurance, that you could access your data from a different data center. Well, from home is another disaster recovery. So we really expanded that. And really one of the key drivers was the security problem. When you accessed applications remotely, it was bypassing the normal security from Exchange. So you log into your email, there's a two-factor authentication, and then there's an access control list to say, I can access these applications. When you dialed in from home over VPN, it bypassed all that security. So basically, in order to allow people to work from home, IT people just said, well, open everything up. Well, this was a disaster. There was a 14,000% increase in cybersecurity attacks. So in people's cloud journey, they had made their finance applications last. They worked, so that was fine. All of a sudden, because of security, those were the most at-risk applications. So we found a real demand for things like our VMware Cloud on AWS offering, allowing them to securely access some of these finance applications. But also, we've got I-Series hosting capability. This is the old AS400 or mini platform that IBM had in the 90s and 2000s. There's a lot of applications running that, especially ERP systems like Infor. We're one of 3 platforms, IBM, Sirius, and ourselves, that can offer this. We've seen a great acceleration of the migration of these kind of applications to the cloud that Microsoft, Google, and Amazon don't have that native capability. So we've been hosting that while putting their data and there are other applications that use that data onto the public cloud. And so that's been a real acceleration of our managed services offerings. And then from the hosting, building on a service desk and managed network, managed security, and managed end user around that. But really the drive, as I'm sure everyone else has seen, is getting those applications to the cloud to alleviate some of the concerns around security of accessing their applications was already on their cloud roadmap. It just accelerated them and had them prioritize different applications.
Okay, very good. Mike, I mean, you're at 20% or so recurring revenue right now. I mean, how do you sort of build that? And I would assume as you roll out LedgerPay, that'll increase your percentage of recurring revenue. But if you can just sort of give some highlights there on the recurring revenue side of your business.
Yeah, so there's really kind of 3 elements to our recurring revenues. First is third-party software that, we are the licensing agent for Microsoft, as an example, for all their cloud services. If you're an enterprise and you're going to consume Microsoft's cloud across any of their dimensions, we're actually the reseller of it on a recurring revenue basis, and get 15 to 30% margins on that business as the primary provider of that. So call that third-party reseller. We have a few other products like that we sell. Managed services, obviously, that's both about managing and governing the cloud environments, their application data estate. We're providing a set of services, DevOps as a service, to help organizations really incorporate infrastructure as code and how to really bring to life modern native cloud applications in a secure way, but do that under a service model rather than them having to do it themselves. And then lastly, the third element is what we call first party, which is where we have our applications like mPerform, which is a SaaS-based recurring revenue and performance management with over 100,000 users. And then we have our LedgerPay product, which will be a transaction and SaaS-based offering with fees associated with payment processing, fees associated with unlocking this payments intelligence, as well as an analytics and AI platform that we're bringing to market that will be a SaaS offering. So as you think about that 20% move, currently none of the LedgerPay is represented in that. We don't have any recurring revenues on that. That'll be 90% recurring as we move forward. So our goal on our cloud services business is to grow that to 35, 40%. But on the LedgerPay side, it'll be nearly 90% of that business as it scales and grows. grows and gets activated this year.
Yep, very good. Jeff, I mean, you run your business on AWS, and I mean, if you sort of give an overview of the business model, what the monthly fees are for sort of the base access to Locus, which is one of your main products, and then sort of what the variable revenue would be as customers start consuming more and more of your data.
Yeah, for sure. We did so a little different. So again, when we started building out our Locus product, which is our SaaS platform, we really did it for specific reasons for some clients that we were working with. So we really had that commercial end site or that commercial goal in our purview the entire time. So, unlike some of these other companies that, some of the other AI companies, somebody mentioned it before, everybody likes to sort of brand with the .ai at the back. It's sort of with those, it's, that sort of they're a bunch of smart guys looking for problems to solve. I think what we kind of came to the table with was, hey, we know that there are some problems out there. Clients are asking us to help them solve them. So we started building with those goal lines in view. And for us, a little different, because if you go back 12 months, I had zero recurring revenue. We were building this Locus platform, but really it was zero revenue dollars associated with it. Whereas if you fast forward today, we're at 25% plus. We'll be on that recurring side. So for us, what we do is our Locus platform, we have people sign up for a license, and that license, depending on sort of the functionality they want to have with it, can do everything from just more of a reporting tool to more of an insight and analytics tool to more of a called builder tool to really sort of put some real fundamentals behind what they're trying to do and how they can drive value out of the solution. It literally goes from on the low end, we've got people at a $5,000 a month type of license fee, all the way up to $50,000+ a month, again for our total high end, which is one where they'll look at it and they'll say, we want to understand audience behavior, we want to understand attribution modeling, we want to understand insights and analytics that come out of it. All these things sort of pull out. What we found really interesting for us is that even for the people on the small $5,000 a month type of platform, because we're building things internally. So we do some self-serve, but we also do a bunch of managed service, because we're building tool sets internally that our team needs, tool sets that our guys need in order to manage those accounts, be able to derive value, be able to go and sort of push out some kind of reporting analytics tool or insight tool. Those are tools that we're building that clients can then utilize because we built them in a way that they can be used by my team or on a self-serve basis. And so clients now that have, call it $5,000 a month of recurring revenue on a license fee will typically do, 3 to 4x that with respect to additional work on top of it, whether it's we want to run these reports, we want to buy this media against it, we want to take that data and sort of export it somewhere else. All of those have a cost structure associated with it. So we're looking at it and saying, we've built a platform right now that's totally SaaS enabled that allows us to license it. Depending on the work, depending on the significant sort of investment that they want to make, it can be anywhere from literally 2, sometimes up on a given quarter, up to 10x with respect to incrementals of what they'll do for additional work that comes out of that. Quick example, sometimes just easier to understand. We were doing work for an automotive company. It was a high-end automotive client. And they said, can you help us understand where we can target people better? And this was a ad tech, so advertising kind of execution. And, we were with their agency, and the agency said, hey, let's target people who live in high income areas who we know drive fancy cars. And we were like, interesting. That sounds pretty basic. What if we could come out and do something where I could say to you, why don't I target people right now that if you're a Jag dealership looking to get more business, what if I could target people that are right now looking for cars at the Audi, Mercedes, and Porsche dealership? Target people in market. We know they're looking. We know they're incentivized to buy a car right now. And that kind of thing, again, small Locus license, but to build an audience of people that are right now at my competitors' dealerships to do that kind of conquest marketing, those are things that will be incremental to us. And that's where we're seeing a lot of the growth coming from.
Okay, thank you. And Barry, you guys have a la carte pricing on the monthly side, depending if it's in the smart building side, on the process side, or on the renewable side. If you can go through that modeling and sort of what your recurring revenue will look like in 12 to 18 months or so.
Sure. Well, I think we can take a look at commercial SaaS. We call it results as a service, largely as a result of us looking at the way we take asset care to market as a managed service across all of our different segments. We look at that recurring revenue subscription model as being a real competitive advantage for us as we're going out to get all of these different assets connected. So if you were to take a look at mCloud's annual revenues, a really simple model would be to take a look at the total number of connected assets that we have. Every connected asset brings along with it a tangible annual recurring revenue, which makes it really easy for a customer to estimate for themselves, what's the investment that they're making into asset care to get their assets connected. We also make it really easy for a customer to understand the direct benefit, because every single time that a customer subscribes up for an asset care solution, they're also getting with it a tangible sense of which KPIs they're measuring to really measure what their return on investment for bringing on board the asset care solution. So that simple subscription-based pricing, combined with the fact that we can also deliver the solution on a zero CapEx basis, makes it really easy for a customer to make a buying decision with us. And that's going to be a really big, that's one of the really big reasons why customers come to mCloud, as they could spend a lot of their own capital to invest in their own solution, or to go to a variety of different vendors to go and figure out what kind of solutions are the right ones for them. Or they can come to us, where we take all of the hassle out of trying to figure out what the right solution is and how all of the pieces work. And we'll just help them get access to the results. That's really the core of our own subscription-based pricing model.
Yeah, I think, again, the Canadian market's being overlooked here. You see, with C3.ai, they're at a 155 million run rate, $15 billion market cap. Most of that's probably project-based. I don't know how much of C3's revenue is actually recurring. You look at ServiceNow, they've done 4 acquisitions in the AI space in 2020 alone, trying to build that capability. It's 4.5 billion run rate, 110 billion market cap. And here we are in Canada, underappreciated, and we've got such great technology companies that you guys have built, both growing organically and through M&A. And as a segue into the M&A side, I guess we'll start with Barry. You've done some pretty great acquisitions over the last 3 years. What do you need to add, either on the technology front, geographic coverage, if you were looking at targets, over the next 12 months?
Yeah, well, I think the sequence of acquisitions that we've had in the recent history, all the acquisitions, Canopy being the most recent transaction that we completed back in October and November of this year, that really gives us global coverage. So in terms of all the different access to all the different geographies that we want to be in, our pattern of acquisition has allowed us to get access to all the markets around the world, which has been really, really good for our scale and our own growth. In terms of where we are, we're always on the lookout for interesting companies that provide interesting capabilities. I think we're always really led, unlike a lot of AI companies, we're not kind of in search of a problem. We know where the problems are. What we're on the lookout for are interesting solutions. And so, part of our own exploration in the market is looking for customers, or looking for technology companies that may have interesting answers to really hard problems, hard business problems that we know our customers have. So, and that's really the essence of our go forward is, we're going to keep an eye out, and we're going to see whether there are any interesting companies out there that can contribute to the asset care story that we're building.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Your last 2 acquisitions with Juice Mobile and Tap brought you, some great talent and some management strength to help you grow the company. I mean, what are you looking for from an acquisition standpoint to really capitalize on what you've built with Locus and to leverage all this data that you've accumulated over the last 5 years or so?
Yeah, we even those 2 acquisitions, it was really a little opportunistic on our side. It was some really smart talent with some smart people and some good clients that we were able to absorb pretty easily. And we're definitely looking on the M&A side now as well. So, I mean, we're looking for 3 main things. It's always how I break it down, which is number 1, data, to the extent that there are players that bring unique data sets, unique data assets to the table that we can incorporate into our modeling. Any type of unique data sets and assets that companies have or people have that we're able to sort of, accumulate, that's definitely high on our list. Geo expansion. So we're right now, I think, unlike it sounds like many, we're 99% Canadian based right now, for no reason other than that's where my sales team has been, and that's where some of our relationships have been. But 21 for us is going to be a huge push into the US, and we've got people that are going to do that. But to the extent that there was M&A that could get us into the US faster with a pipeline of business, with some type of clientele, channels that we can get into, that is definitely something that's on the table for us. And third is people. We do have, we're sitting with, I think 24 data science people on staff. And we're looking at that right now and saying we're doing some amazing work, but if I could grow that, if I could expand that, I think we're always looking to, just get a smarter, deeper team. And if we've got those three things on our list of, how we go and really critique different types of acquisitions and different type of M&A that comes to the table, we look at those three and we want to make sure that, having been distracted in the past, we've done some acquisitions in the past, that basically you look at and you think, hey, we wish we had done things differently. Now we're just being very focused and very strategic on make sure they hit the nail, make sure they're strategic, make sure they can add the value that we're looking for.
Okay, thank you. Mike, your consulting business has grown to the 50 million run rate, 9 million, 10 million in EBITDA. We've seen acquisitions in the space with Cognizant taking out 2 Microsoft consultancies at 4.5, 5 times revenue. From a technology standpoint, you've been lucky that you can sort of leverage what Microsoft puts into their stack. Would you look at acquisitions to continue growing the consulting side of the business, or accelerate the rollout and growth on the LedgerPay side? What do you need to sort of look at going into 2021?
Yeah, so there's really kind of the dual strategy that we have. First is continue to build this scale partner with Microsoft, which is a big challenge for enterprise customers and for Microsoft themselves, a highly fragmented, smaller point solution provider community that really can't serve Microsoft and their customers the way they need. So we'll continue to look to add to that portfolio to create geographic reach, to create depth and breadth of technology, to complement the services portfolio that we've gotten, as well as look for IP and industry acumen to complement that and scale and grow similar to what we've done there. But to your point on LedgerPay, LedgerPay is this product that we've been investing in for the last now 4 years and just bringing to market. And one of the accelerants that we're actively in process is a strong M&A approach there to go out and acquire really kind of 2 different things. First and foremost is a portfolio of merchants called an ISO, independent sales organizations, is to start to accumulate merchants that we can directly bring into our payment processor and take over the payment processing. And it really does 2 things. So we'll be looking for merchants or ISOs that have somewhere between 5 and 10,000 merchants in their portfolio, have a mid-market presence that allows us to activate and capture that capability, leveraging LedgerPay's payment processing capabilities, but now introduce the payments intelligence and insights platform into that merchant base, while also going to market jointly in an organic way with Microsoft and dunnhumby and others, where we're capturing, I'll call it elephant hunting, where we're off looking at major merchants who unlocking that data insights from a payments platform is something really new and unique for them. So you'll see us very aggressively looking to expand and grow that LedgerPay platform, as well as technology plays. So there are complementary IP capabilities that we want to extend LedgerPay. An example would be looking at, as you do payments, terminal devices and being able to integrate with those as part of a payment processor is a key thing. And there are ways now to do that through technology that we'll look to complement. So you'll see a strong push from our side to activate the LedgerPay acquisition and build and grow, and expect to do something here in the next quarter.
Okay, thank you very much. And then for Shaun, you had outlined at the beginning of your journey here with Converge the 3 phases of your strategy, and you've gone through the first 2 phases nicely. Phase 3 is sort of getting to a 2 billion run rate and 100 to 200 million in EBITDA. I mean, what do you see going into 2021 from some of the opportunities on the acquisition front? And are there any technologies or geographic gaps that you need to fill?
Yeah, so as you know, during 2020, we started with our wonderful action pipeline that we put on hold during COVID to see how companies were impacted. And then we announced that we'd be getting back on the trail. We acquired now 4 companies in Q4. And in December, some of these were tuck-ins. Workgroup Connections helped us with our Amazon practice, as well as IBM software. We had Carpe Datum, the analytics company, a lot of financial planning, complement our AI and machine learning, as well as Vivo, which was really on the IP side around their trust platform. We still have a very robust pipeline of acquisitions that will kind of go through into Q1, both on the scale side to help us hit all the NFL cities, as is our stated goal. And then as we also have 4 to 6 acquisitions a year in North America, but then also as we look, we always said we'd wait till Brexit was complete to go into Europe. We've announced it in Q2. Thank goodness Brexit finally has been at the last second been negotiated, so they're at least a stable platform you can build on. We'll be going into Germany and the UK in Q2 of 2021. So there are some more capabilities around our managed services. So we've got 240 million of recurring revenue. 60 million of that is on our private cloud or managed services. Really looking to extend those capabilities. I mentioned the application hosting capabilities and the managed services around that. That'll be a key organic growth area for us. We are the fastest growing IT service provider in North America, not just from our acquisitions, but also from our organic growth. And that'll be a key area. So if there's acquisitions that'll help us scale our managed services, we've announced we'll try to get those to over 50% gross profit and really kind of double those in this year. So a very aggressive acquisition path again, as we've demonstrated in Q4 with 4 so far, and then into 2021 as well.
Okay, excellent. Here, as you know, we're approaching the hour here, so you know, as we close here, I'll sort of have each of you, you know, give some closing comments here. I'd like to focus on, I guess we'll start with Shaun. I mean, you know, you got a great Red Hat practice, VMware, across the spectrum, IBM Analytics, et cetera. If you're looking at, you know, the next 12 months, if you can give one technology that you think you'll see some nice growth in, either a practice that you have or something that you see as an opportunity going forward, and then one catalyst that you think you know, that you want to give to investors to focus on as they look at Converge.
So for us on the technology side, Snowflake is one of the quickest growth partners. We've got a really strong analytics practice. A lot of it's been legacy IBM Watson, which has been very, very strong. But Snowflake has a wonderful platform. We've really leveraged that to expand some of our analytics capabilities. And on the Carpe Datum side, that'll help as well. But what we've got now with this platform and this wonderful mid-market customer base in these sectors like technology, healthcare, and finance and government is a platform that we can leverage really to provide these managed services. So our key, the company defining event is really our Infor partnership, where there's 1,600 opportunities that will come to ourselves, IBM or Sirius. The recurring revenue opportunity for us, if we get a couple hundred of these on there, is in the hundreds of millions of annual recurring revenue for us. So that's really the company defining event that we'll be providing metrics to the street based on our Q4 numbers. The GCP sales force has been trained up on identifying these opportunities and bringing them to us. The Infor guys are as well. So the managed services and recurring revenue that we generate from moving applications like Infor into the cloud hosted by us, and the data and the other applications in the public cloud, Azure in the front office, Amazon and GCP in the back office, that'll be company defining for us in 2021.
Okay, excellent. Mike, is there anything in the Microsoft technology stack that excites you or provides an opportunity going forward, and one catalyst the street should look at with regards to Quisitive?
Yeah, I think we touched on this a lot today, is really around unlocking the power of data and analytics and moving into really creating value add capabilities in a modern cloud way, and how to leverage that. So we'll continue to see Microsoft, obviously their products like Synapse and Purview and other things that they're bringing to market that take this whole process of consuming data and acting on it and really streamlining it, so that the heavy lift is no longer about just getting to data. It's about activating intelligence from it. So that'll be kind of the focus that you'll see us have in the Microsoft solution side. And the real catalyst for us is the unlocking the fintech inside of this company called LedgerPay, which is the first cloud-based payment processing platform, all built and co-developed with Microsoft in Azure, and really unlocking the data insights created through that on payments intelligence, which has for a long time been considered a non-value added tax for merchants, and us bringing this new value to them by giving them rich insights into their consumer and the ability to personalize promotions to them.
Excellent. Jeff, anything from AWS or something on the technology side that you see, going forward that can accelerate your growth and one catalyst for the street?
For sure. I think for us, it's a combination of, AWS is where we're at now in terms of where we've got, most of our, systems sort of built around, but we're also looking at expanding that. And even now with Azure, I think people have been talking to people at Snowflake, Alteryx, like there's been a bunch of companies now that we are talking to about how to leverage what we've got sort of on those platforms. So AWS for us was step one, but there will be more. And I think the big thing for us is it's our data revenue. Like I mentioned, data revenue going back, 18 months was nominal. We've now built this up, and even if you see this year, even with sort of COVID, sort of the data revenue for us on a quarter-over-quarter basis has been pretty significant, and we'll probably do, in Q4, as again, if you can see the growth, like it's going to be sort of, significantly. It's almost what we did all of last year. So it is coming on. I think that data revenue growth for us, the way that we're looking at data, the way that we're helping companies take that data and execute against it, that's the big thing that we'll look at. I think similar to Mike said, I think there is a big problem right now that we're hearing from our customers, which are, I have data, don't know what to do with it. Have data, don't know how to get smarter, from it. And that's kind of what we put in place. We put a system in place whereby using their data and our data together with these types of algorithms and with type of intelligence, we can actually give them things to operate against that they haven't been able to do in the past. So big thing for us is, we're growing. I think growth for us is going to be key. I think moving into the US for us will be key. The hardest work when it comes to data, the hardest work when it comes to analysis is when you don't have sort of big enough data sets. We've done the heavy lifting in Canada. And right now we're getting people, whether it's our data partners, whether it's some of our clients, they're asking us to do more and more in the US. So I think for us, the 2021 catalysts are going to be a combination of continued data growth, which is going to be a prime factor for us, as well as expanding into new markets.
Very good. And closing it out, Barry, you guys have migrated from Google Cloud to Azure. What do you see on the technology side, either leveraging some of the acquisitions you've done, or where do you see the biggest opportunity, I guess, from what you guys are working on?
Well, I think one really exciting area for us at mCloud is the whole area of connected workers and looking at ways in which we can provide mobile solutions to the people who are field workers out at these facilities who need to kind of be the last mile to actually maintain and manage those assets. So, we're really excited about the fact that we recently brought on board new and exciting technologies like natural language processing. So you're going to be able to talk to asset care like it's a digital assistant out in the field. All of those technologies are now coming together in a really exciting way for people who work in these heavy industries, because it's been a long time coming that all of these technologies are being made accessible to the people who actually need to manage and maintain complex assets. So the fact that you can bring mobile solutions out to these workers, you can give them access to the right information at the right time and give them parity with their colleagues in the back office, means that they're going to be able to go and manage and maintain these assets in record time. And so all of that is a really exciting opportunity for us and something to look for as we head into 2021.
Excellent. And with that, gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for your time today and all your great insights. And hopefully with this conference, we'll get more and more U.S. investors see how undervalued the tech sector is here in Canada, and the great opportunities on the data analytics and AI front. And with that, I'll hand it over to Bobby to close this out.
Very good. Well, thank you all so much for joining us on the panel today. Just some quick housekeeping. Ralph, just quick disclosure. Are any of the companies mentioned here currently clients for Focus Merchant Group?
Yes, I've meant to mention that at the beginning. I am on the board of directors of Converge, and I am a shareholder of all 4 companies.
Very good. And before I let you all go again, one last thing. I'd love to get your websites for where everybody can get more information. So Shaun, let's start with you.
www.convergetp.com.
Nice. Mike?
www.quisitive.com.
And Barry?
www.mcloudcorp.com.
Awesome. And Geoffrey?
It's www.eqworks.com.
And then you can find Ralph. What's your website?
www.focusmerchantgroup.com.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Really appreciate you all taking the time today. This was great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Thank you.